Yeah, Steve, were you going to give a quick overview of the different grade
Yeah,
levels? Okay.
yeah, I'll do it. Yeah.
Okay, so that comes first. Okay. All right. Or
We'll just get going and then
all right.
so Cindy, you think we should get started here?
Yeah, I think so. I know there are a couple of folks who were going to be a little late, but I don't want to punish the majority of the group for that.
Okay. All right. First off, so we're here. Thank you for attending. We're here for our education subcommittee meeting. And just before we get started, does anyone have announcements or on any topics or comments that anyone would like to make? Any announcements, comments? Christy?
I have a comment, Steve. How you doing?
Yes. Good.
I met with the two digital gurus at CT Humanities, Mike and Khalil, about some projects that I'm just wanted to ask them about. And I just wanted to let this subcommittee know that they are curating specific activities that are on Teach It and on the Connecticut Humanities digital websites. So I just wanted to let this committee know that they are actually tagging stuff for America 250. So that's going to be really beneficial for the work for this group.
Thank you. Anyone else? Matt, any briefly, what's up with the conference? Anything you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it made my hair go white. Very, very busy. But things are coming together, I think, quite nicely. Lot of emails back and forth between Cindy Tolosa, who has been great working all of this. Jenny has been dynamite and helping us along, and of course, Steve, you as well. So we're really looking forward to the event. We think it's going to just be a fantastic opportunity to really explore ideas. And I had a lengthy meeting yesterday with Alex Taylor, who was the former director of the Connecticut Youth Forum, and he's such a great guy, and he's going to be dynamite in working with these kids. So it's really going to be, I think it's going to be quite exciting and a great learning opportunity for everybody.
Great. And then just a reminder, you've heard this before, but Cindy, very briefly on the third day.
Yeah, so we will have 5 moderated discussions, one on each of the themes for Connecticut's 250th, and then one on that is a partnership with the Office of Tourism to really talk about how to market our stories to folks in the marketing sector. And otherwise, it should be a great day. We're looking forward to it. We are almost done rounding up all of the speakers, and we'll be releasing all of their names soon. And I think it should be a really wonderful opportunity. We're at about 140 folks signed up, so we anticipate that we'll be selling out quite soon.
Oh, nice.
And Cindy, if an individual wants to sign up, how does one do that?
I will throw the link in the chat.
Great. And any other comments or announcements of events or anything like that from anyone else? All right, we're going to do 2 tasks today. And first one, Bilal, take it away. Oh, I'll tell you that. First thing we're going to do, we decided, let me give you just a little background. We decided, and this was also in conjunction with some of our committee members, that for the website and all, finding resources is the most critical thing. And this is going to be finding resources for all kinds of groups of people, but we're going to start with finding resources for schools and for school-age teachers and for school-age students. So with that, Bill, take it away.
All right. So, part of what we want to do is and we're such a small group, so this is going to be interesting. I think maybe just splitting it down to half, down the middle would make sense in terms of creating just two groups, but to, sort of tackle this. I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to look at the agenda. It's actually in the chat to be able to look at it. And as Steve said, it's really, today's sort of discussion is to really sort of focus on trying to identify, resources from text to artworks to museums, et cetera, that would be useful thinking about within these different grade levels. And we've got grade 3, grade 5, grade 8, and also high school, right? And so, and again, just the task for today, to start this out is to really figure out what are appropriate resources? What are some of the things? And Christina's already identified some work that's already been done to do that. And really for us to figure out how to populate the 250 website with those kinds of resources that are already being, put together. So the idea is to put, all of us into groups and to have these discussions. You may find yourself in a group that you will not be completely familiar with all of the stuff in those areas. Hopefully that won't be the case, but the idea is, to get comfortable, have a conversation, to share and exchange ideas about what are, again, the appropriate kinds of resources. So I guess, Steve, do you want to talk about each grade level? Is that the next step?
Yeah, I just would want to, and for those that know this, my apologies, but at the high school, in secondary schools and by the state standards, grade 3 is a grade where traditionally the curriculum would be Connecticut history and Connecticut and local your region. So if somebody's looking for resources for grade 3, it would be, that's the context. They would be studying in the grade 3, Connecticut and their own town. And there is a historical component to that in the standards in the model curriculum. So this can be history. Grade 5 traditionally would be studying from the earliest settlers in Connecticut and in North America in general, up to and including the Revolutionary War. So that's sort of a wheelhouse area, grade 5. And remember, students in how old are students in grade 5?
10.
10. So we're looking here at 10-year-olds. And if we're going back to grade 3, we're looking for 8-year-olds, just to put things into context. So grade 3, Connecticut and your community. Grade 5, U.S. history up to the Revolutionary War. Grade 8 would be the Revolutionary War. Now remember, we want to make this not just about the Revolutionary War. Our story is going to be a continuous one, how the ideas of the Declaration were challenged over time. Grade 8 would be the Revolutionary War up until the Reconstruction period. And then high school would be from the Reconstruction period to the present day. And for some of you who may remember teaching this or remembering it, having it in your own high school career, how far does a social studies teacher or a history teacher usually get on this? Traditionally, it says to the present day, there's teachers that would say, well, we made it to Vietnam. We did a good job this year, but as far to the present day as we possibly can. All right, so those are the 4 areas that we have. So Cindy, do you want to do some dividing here, some helping here?
Could
So
I just
your
ask
job
you a
is-
question?
Yeah.
Steve, would you not include government classes?
The which classes?
Government.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
So we should make a 5th area of government.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because every every high school kid has to take
Has to
government.
take
don't
it,
they?
yep.
Okay,
I mean, it
so
doesn't fit as
we
closely.
will make, I think with our group today, we'll do just the four. Yeah, I agree with you. We'll add government, but how about just for today, we do the 4 history areas, and then we certainly will do government as well.
Great, and so I will break us up into 2 groups of 6 or so. And I'll start with,
And
yes,
Cindy, can I
yeah,
just say something very quickly? So if you actually look at the agenda and you click on the resource activity worksheet, right? Yeah, that actually sort of provides that summary that Steve just gave in terms of just so for reference for folks to be able to look back and forth at, just from a reference.
And you notice I also included a couple standards. So just so you get an idea of the kind of things that kids would be looking for at that grade level.
wonderful. And I will also, once you're split up into your rooms, I will also share a link into each room for a couple of Google Docs that you can type into as you're working together. And it has links out to that identifying resources worksheet document, and then some other resources that you all can take a look at while you're working through it.
And how long will we be in the work groups doing this? Did we sort of decide on the amount of time?
So I'm gonna say I'll bring everybody back around 4:20. And if that seems far too soon, you can, from the breakout rooms, you can shoot me a message and I can kind of start
4:20
together,
is good.
folks.
That's half an hour. That's good, I think, Cindy.
Wonderful. So if there are no more questions out there, I'm not hearing any.
I think Tracy has a question.
Oh, sorry.
I was just clicking on the different states. And is the goal of this to produce something like I clicked on Rhode Island and it has Revolutionary War digital resources. Is that what we're moving towards, or is that what we're trying to figure out, how to link to documents from Connecticut? Or I'm just want to know what our final goal is here.
I
We-
think we're
go
just trying to crowdsource any kind of resource we can think about. So it could be field trips, it could be primary documents, it could be books, it could be any kind of thing that you think will support teachers or students in these topics.
And
We
it
just
won't-
want to start generating, and then we can sort of curate it later.
Right.
It won't necessarily look like any of the other states. It'll be our own thing, but those were just little points for inspiration for you all.
And given the size of our group, one group will be grade 3 and 5, and another group will be 8 and high school, just given the size of our group, just to split it down the middle that way.
So if there is anyone who would really like to be in grades 3 and 5, can you raise your hands? Christine, I see you. Anyone who strongly wants to be in grades 8 in high school? Elizabeth. I don't see any other hands, so I'm just
I
going
do
to.
the 8 in high school. I teach those grades, so.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, I gotta change my name here, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. They can follow along.
I can do elementary.
I'll go to elementary, Cindy.
Perfect.
I'll do elementary too.
Great.
I'll do the high school then, yeah. High school and 8th grade.
Okay, and I kind of split everybody else up randomly. So I will send you to your rooms right in one moment, and then once you're in there, you'll see a message from me with the links to, each of you will receive 2 Google Docs for typing into. Hi, Ruth. There we go. You're muted. No, I can't hear you, but it says you're muted. Can you hear me?
Is this meeting supposed to be 3:30 or 4 o'clock?
It's 3:30. So everybody else has gone into breakout rooms.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Late to the party here.
Oh, it's fine. So we split into 2 groups instead of 4. So we have one group working on resources for grades 3 and 5, and one working on resources for grade 8 and high school. And we have a couple of documents that people are adding things to.
Okay.
Do you have a preference?
Um, Not really. And at this point, since I missed, I might not be great participating, but I'd sure like to hear what's going on.
Yeah, I will add you to the high school group. They're pretty even, but I think that group has some good organized folks in it.
Okay.
And Bilal is leading that group through the activity.
Hey, while I have you, before you put me in there, you were in on the meeting where I said Shelley Lowe could come to the April event.
Yes.
She hasn't received the invitation yet. And part of that may be because one of her staff members who handles a lot of that is out right now.
Okay.
So I had taken a picture of the one that I got in the mail and I
Perfect.
asked her if she got it yet. She said she hadn't. So
Okay.
if you want to email her directly,
Yeah.
maybe that's the best thing to do. And then she
Okay.
can get it through their process, but it's on her calendar. She's planning on coming, so.
Oh, perfect. That's great to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll email it directly to her. I'll get her email from Jason or
Okay.
Sheldon.
Okay.
They have it. But thank you. All
You're welcome.
right, I'll send you over there now.
Thank you.
I sent myself instead of you. Let me fix that. Oh, Zoom. There we go. You should be able to accept it. Matt.
Hey,
Is everyone else on their way?
I would assume so. I don't know if they saw the little button that says leave.
Okay,
So, but Bilal was wrapping up for us. So
okay,
we had a productive meeting. It was good.
great. It seems like the other group did too, so that's great.
Good.
I got cut off.
Just clicked on the thing and it
I
threw me
did
out,
too.
threw me out, you know.
I was trying to make a point.
You must have clicked on it then, but while you were doing it,
I got trigger happy.
I had that happen to me one time before too. I was like, "Oh, it's a box. Click on it." Yeah, yeah. It took me out of the room. So. Mm.
So I clicked on the wrong button in the breakout group, but Jenny, you were just talking about a project that Kathy Hermes is working on about compiling Revolutionary War resources. So definitely connect with Kathy Hermes about her project. She was describing your project, Kathy, and I said, well, she's doing that.
Could you tell us about that? I'm sorry if the other group talked about it, but could you tell our group about this?
We didn't talk about it, but I have a grant from Connecticut Humanities, a planning grant for something called the Spirit of Revolution, the Connecticut Line Explored. And we're creating a simulation where users would choose a character and follow that character through the war. And it's not necessarily all military history. It's a lot of social history, actually, but the Connecticut line is sort of the anchor. What's going on in the war reflects kind of critical decision-making points that people will have to make. So, you know, are you a loyalist or a patriot? But other lesser choices. Do you help somebody who's a deserter? You know, all kinds of dilemmas like that. And we'll have 2 reading levels, 5th grade through 8th grade, and then 9th grade on up. And so with the planning grant, we're building out to the end of 1776 with the Battle of Trenton. And then if we get the implementation grant, we'll go on with the rest of the war.
Nice.
So anybody who would like to get a brochure on that and participate can email me at publisher@connecticutexplored.org, which I'm putting in the chat. But also, the Connecticut Council of Social Studies is having a webinar where I'm going to discuss the game and explain it in detail for any teachers that are interested.
When's that going to be, Kathy? Do you know?
I gotta check my calendar. It's coming up soon.
I think we said March 20th, right, Kathy?
March 20th. Yeah, I think March 20th. I just wanted to be sure. That is correct. March 20th at 4 p.m.
Could somebody from the 3-5 group just report out on the conversations, something about the conversations that took part in that group?
Yeah, sure. I'll go for everybody. We talked about field trips. We have a lot of museum resources, online resources, like Wadsworth Athenaeum has John Trumbull paintings, Yale University Art Gallery We are trying to diversify these resources too. Jenny had a good group that she mentioned. And so there's a combination of field trips, and we also talked about providing some online resources, primary sources. Anything else that anybody else wants to contribute?
I would just say we talked a little bit about professional development for teachers and how that might happen. Or that being an important part of it, I guess.
Yeah, and also finding some sources with some FAQs for teachers. Steve was saying he's identifying a need that some teachers they're not familiar with their local history. They may not have grown up in their towns where they teach in. And I was suggesting ConnecticutHistory.org has some really nice digestible readings that teachers can do to prepare themselves. And I think that's a really good point too, to give them a little background knowledge.
Anything thank you, Christine, anything from the eight high school group? Anything you want to know about that you find folks talked about?
I talked a lot during the group, so somebody else can sort of talk. Yeah, just in terms of helping the group. Well, I'll start it off. I mean, there's a lot of overlap with obviously what Christine just said in terms of in similar sort of things like the Wadsworth. And so what we essentially did was we, sort of broadly spoke about the various types of resources we'd like to have, and then everybody just went to work and just started to type things into the Google Documents. Tony had done a lot of our work for us. He has a huge list of resources he had already compiled. So we've got a link to his resources as well. But we talked about museums, we talked about historical societies, we talked about national resources to pull in, digital stuff, to look at in terms of newspaper resources. So just a wide range of things. I think we've got to figure out how to organize all of this, which is another conversation we should probably have, Steve, about the work of actually going through all of these resources and how do we sort of organize them and think about it in that way. Others, comments about our group?
I'll just say that the database I put together, I put it together a few years ago, so we'll have to check the links to make sure they're still working. And I added another one. I found another database I made. I don't know what's wrong with me. I keep making all these databases, but it's also broken down by different topics. So river tribes, mercantilism, French and Indian War, taxation representation, and it has all sources that can be adapted for the classroom. they're not necessarily ready for the classroom, but they're to be adapted. And I'm gonna put it in both the 6 to 8 and the high school one. So I'll put it in now.
Yeah, this today was just step one, obviously, of many steps on these resources. But we've got to collectively populate a website to replicate, not to be the same as the Mass website or the Rhode Island website. But I think our teachers, and quite frankly, there's people that our community members are owed that as well, I think. So today was just step one on that process. And we want to thank you for that. Cindy, could you, because, I think it's important that, we've had enough meetings where we've kind of just shared ideas. I think it's time that we actually, like today, we did this. And Cindy, if you could share our second thing that we're going to do today.
Yeah, so I put the link in the chat to this draft outline of a plan for this subcommittee moving forward. And we're looking at splitting the group up into 4 smaller groups that are a little more focused in terms of the work that is getting done. So we have one group that will be dedicated to resources, expanding on the conversation that we had today, and really kind of curating all of these resources a little more. One thing, it's a big list, but really putting that together in a way that's more easily accessible. we have a group for content creation because we do think that as we curate the existing resources, there might be one or two small areas that where there are some gaps. We are not looking to create a lot of content, but if there's really a glaring gap that we can fill with a couple of small projects, we'd love to get a group together that is ready to do that. You will see that there is a higher education group. There's not a lot there yet, but I think part of it is that group coming together to kind of think about how we're engaging college students and professors and other ways to engage young adults in the 250th and what we're doing. And finally, an outreach group that is focused on getting all of these great resources and the information that we're doing, getting that out to teachers, getting that out to students and families and people who can use it. So I don't know if Bilal or Steve have anything to add. This is very much an outline. We will continue to build on it as a group over the next few months.
I guess the only question I'll ask is, for people who are here, does this look like it makes sense in terms of the way we are approaching this and thinking about it right now?
Is there another group that we should have? Are these groups appropriate? Just to mirror what Bilal just asked.
Is outreach, would that include professional development?
That would not include professional development. I think, Cindy, maybe we make a 5th column for professional development, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'm happy to create a 5th column. Are we thinking that this group is going to develop professional I just want to think about how subcommittee members are going to be involved. Is it developing the professional development? Is it bringing folks together?
I'm wondering if we may have group 2. I can't imagine our group's job is to, although it may be, to give the professional development. So how about, Cindy, I'll back off my request, and how about we say content creation / professional development for that?
Because it just seems like if we do all this work and nobody, I know there's outreach, but if teachers don't experience it in some way, I don't know if it's going to happen.
The outreach job is going to be, you know what, I think that we've got to reach out, but a lot of things like this, you reach out to teachers. I think to make this work, we can still do that. But I've talked to some superintendents that very specifically want their schools involved in this. I think this is, quite frankly, good PR. I hate to put it that way. Not that it's not good for kids, but I've talked to 3 superintendents who said, I'm going to tell them to be involved in it. That may not necessarily be the right approach, but let's just say it is an approach, right? So, Bilal, you have anything on this?
No, I was thinking about it from the standpoint, I like to sort of think of this subcommittee being really the kind of ambassadors for this work that we're putting together to compile this information. To me, it strikes me as we need to really think about how do we get this out there and what are the sort of tools we use to do that, in terms of outreach to teachers and principals and also and I would imagine for that outreach, maybe that's the videos of, that are posted on, I mean, that's part of the outreach, that we create videos of people that, people can go to and see, that sort of maybe a history moment. I don't know. I mean, but the idea is, I think that's what outreach is really trying to figure out. How do we get the information out about 250? How do we, put in teachers' hands the tools that they may need, that they can sort of figure out how to use. But I'd be hesitant about doing trainings. I'm just saying, but I think outreaches can be very different from that.
I think that the work that Tony and Steve do and Jenny do with Connecticut Council for the Social Studies is going to be absolutely key to this. If you have a themed conference that's focused on the Declaration of Independence, they do their conference every fall. I don't know if CCSA would be interested in that, but certainly the outreach to teachers exists.
And also in the resources column, we were talking about museums and historical societies. Of course, they have different capacities, but all these museums have outreach programs where they can come to your school. And we know the barriers to field trips are immense. So maybe in that column, we have museums and other professionals who can present professional development, and museums and organizations who can come to your school to do an outreach program.
Cindy, a never-ending question, but would there be at any point, do you think, funding for any of the activities that we're talking about? And I'm probably you're guessing on that, or maybe you're not, but what would be your thoughts on that?
So I think as of right now, we're really looking at planning for a status quo funding kind of scenario, which is more or less nothing. And we are involved in some heavy advocacy right now for $30 million from the state, which would heavily change everything. So I think it is easier to ramp up than ramp down if we start to plan for those 30 million, but a lot of the work that we've outlined in this document is volunteer work, so I won't say free, but really a way to kind of take everyone's skills here and get things out there that we can start to get conversations started, even if we don't have a lot of funding. Come end of May, early June, we should have a much better idea of what kind of state support we're going to have, and that will greatly impact what we're able to do in terms of promising funding. And at that point, we can really have a broader discussion about what the right projects to invest in might be. But for the meantime, we're not really counting on too much.
No, and obvious, to state the obvious, we would have to, as individuals on this subcommittee, have to determine our own capabilities on this in the absence of for the sake of argument, with no funding. I mean, but let's be optimistic and say you're going to get $50 million, and then our problems go away, don't they?
Then we have a whole new set of problems.
Cindy, what's the path for that bill? Like, where is it going through? Do you know? And who's sponsoring it?
So we have two different bills right now. One is sponsored by Kathy Austin, which is focused on bonding funds for the 250th. So it would include some appropriated funds to kind of get us moving more quickly, and then bonded funds to take us through the next 4 years. A lot of activities will take place in the next 3 years, but the commission goes through June 30th of 2028. The other bill that has been introduced is by Representative Jason Rojas, who has introduced a bill to temporarily increase the lodging tax to fund 250th initiatives, which is a slightly different approach. At the end of the day, these are two leaders in the legislature who are interested in getting the conversation started about how important the 250th is and how it needs to be funded now, because we're running out of time. So outside of that, I can't say with too much certainty what's going to happen, but those conversations are ongoing, and we do have senior leadership interested in funding this.
I mean, obviously, people like Denise will probably, testify on this. Do you think just among this group of people, given the wide range of backgrounds, I mean, did it make sense to be thinking about letters to the editor, op-eds? I mean, I chair the board of the CT Mirror, so I can't contribute there, but I'd be willing to contribute someplace else and really encourage others to really sort of talk about this, to try to help build short session, which means they're not normally in a generous mood, for giving out money in a short session in particular, but we need to, if we're going to move any ground on this, probably needs to occur now rather than later. So, to the extent that people can do that, to really get it out there and use, to really try to create some sort of momentum, at least some sort of public pressure to see something like this happen, I think will just be critical to make it real.
And I would say contacting your local representatives and senators to alert them to this as well. I just had another question about, I know that the state historian is on the big committee. That's not the education committee. Does he play any role here or no? Because the higher ed is sort of sparse there. But is he playing any role in this at all?
I am sure that he would be happy to. He is on the engagement subcommittee, so I think there will definitely be overlap with the outreach subcommittee. And yes, Bilal, I'm happy to share the bill numbers. So I think so far we haven't been talking a lot about the higher ed. So I think once we get to the point where we're meeting a little more on those themes, I'm sure that he'd be happy to be involved.
Great.
Or Barbara McQueen.
Cindy, just one last question for me anyway. Do we get a sense that 250 as a topic is catching on in the legislature, or wouldn't you be able to comment on that?
Yes. I would say overall, people have been vastly supportive of the 250th. There's a lot of, even when no one from this group is in the room, there's a lot of conversation about it, which is a good thing. So I think things are looking good. You never know. But they do seem, very quickly after the last session, they seem to understand that they had missed out by not funding the 250th at that point in time. So we have that on our side, despite it being a short session and otherwise a session where it's hard to get funding. And I will say that is a big reason why bonding has come up as a potential for funding this. Traditionally, that is only for capital projects, which the 250th largely is not, but we are really working to help legislators think of the 250th as cultural infrastructure and building the bones that we need to ramp up arts and culture in the state and really develop a tourism driver around the 250th, and hoping that that can open the doors to bonding, because it's a much easier ask than an appropriation.
Any additional comments or questions? Could I ask you, we have as we exist, 4 subcommittees. Could I ask everybody in the next day or two if you could simply email Cindy and tell her what subcommittee you would be willing to serve on? If you'd be willing to serve on, but if there's a subcommittee that you would be interested in serving on, if you could email Cindy, certainly by the end of the week, and let her know which of those you'd be on. And in the future, by the way, our meetings will not be all large meetings like this, but I think every other meeting will be meetings of the individual subcommittees. And we have to still obviously spend some work determining tasks and goals of each of the subcommittees, but that we can do once the subcommittees are actually created. Cindy, is that fair? By the end of the week, everybody emails you?
That's perfect. And I will send out an email to everybody on the subcommittee so that folks who aren't here right now for whatever reason can respond to that. So you can just respond to that email when you get it.
That was my thing. That was what I was about to say. Yep. Go ahead.
And I want to, I think it's any other issues that anybody wants to bring up here. I want to I really want to thank you folks for hanging in on this, and for being involved, and we're going to create some good stuff. Bilal, I want to thank you for coming on and serving as co-chair. You're a delightful guy to work with. I don't know if everybody says that, but I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say it here, but you're a nice guy to work with. And you'll be getting an email from Cindy, respond to that, and then we'll be talking about our next steps. How about that? But I do think for those that are politically minded, a note, an email to your legislature is one small way. And if enough people do it, one large way to get this going. Kathy, you had a comment? No? Have a good